Chapter 6. Observe Without Reaction, the Warrior's Silent Strategy. By now you understand something most people never grasp. Power doesn't come from talking. It doesn't come from being aggressive. It doesn't come from proving yourself. Power comes from stillness, from presence, from the ability to remain unshaken when everything around you is chaotic. But there's one more piece, one more skill that separates those who have genuine power from those who just think they do. It's the ability to observe without reacting, to see what's happening, to understand it, to respond from clarity instead of emotion, to stay silent while others lose control. This is where the real battle happens. Not in loud confrontations, not in dramatic moments, in the split second between stimulus and response, in the gap between what happens and how you choose to handle it. Reactive emotions betray weakness every single time. When someone pushes your buttons and you respond emotionally, you've just shown them the button. You've just revealed where your power ends and your fragility begins. Think about a boardroom negotiation. Two parties. One side is calm, observing, thinking strategically. The other side is getting emotional, getting frustrated, getting angry. They're reacting. Who wins? Always the one who stayed calm. Always the one who observed without being pulled into the emotional vortex. Or consider a conflict with a family member. Someone says something designed to hurt you. They're pushing your buttons because they know where your buttons are. If you react emotionally, if you get defensive, if you show your pain, you've lost. You've given them power over your state. But if you observe what they said, if you see the emotion underneath it, if you understand what they're really trying to accomplish, if you stay calm and respond from that understanding instead of reacting from hurt, you've won. You've maintained your power. Observe, don't absorb. Master the unseen battle. This is the warrior's way. Not physical strength, not dominance through force, but the ability to stay present and clear when others are losing their minds. This is why meditation practitioners who seem soft and gentle can move through conflict zones unscathed. It's not because they're passive, it's because they don't react. They observe, they see clearly, they respond strategically. And by the time other people realize what's happened, the battle is already over. Most people are completely reactive. Someone triggers them and they're off. They're in their emotions. They're defensive. They're trying to prove something. They're trying to protect themselves. They're fighting. But fighting is surrender, because fighting means you've accepted the other person's frame. You've accepted the battle they've defined. You're playing their game. The warrior observes the game and chooses not to play. The warrior sees the trigger coming and chooses not to be triggered. The warrior watches the emotion and chooses not to be controlled by it. Observe, don't absorb. Master the unseen battle. That's the practice, not just in meditation, in life, in every interaction, in every moment of potential conflict. There was a man navigating a family dispute. His siblings wanted to sell their parents' house against his wishes. It was emotionally charged. There was history. There was hurt. There was conflict. He could have reacted. He could have gotten defensive. He could have fought. He could have tried to convince them he was right. Instead, he observed. He listened to their perspective without trying to counter it. He observed his own emotional reaction without being controlled by it. He saw the real conflict beneath the surface conflict. He understood what they actually needed, not what they were saying. And from that place of observation and understanding, he made a move that surprised everyone. He proposed a solution that nobody had considered. And instead of forcing, instead of fighting, instead of reacting, he simply presented it, calmly, clearly, without attachment to the outcome. Everyone accepted it, not because he convinced them, but because his clarity and calm created space for them to think differently. In silence, you win. Observe and conquer repeatedly. That's what he learned. That every moment you stay observant and don't react is a victory.
Every moment you maintain clarity while others lose theirs is power. You've now mastered 6 practices. You've built a complete system: internal silence, grounded presence, emotional armor, breath control, self-compassion, and now strategic non-reactivity. You're not fragile anymore. You're not at the mercy of circumstances. You're not controlled by other people's emotions or judgments or attacks. You're becoming something rare, someone who is present, someone who is calm, someone who is unshakable. But there's one more piece. Right now, you're mastering your inner world. You're becoming solid internally. But real power isn't just internal. Real power is external. It's influence. It's the ability to shape outcomes. It's the ability to make things happen through presence alone. Now it's time to learn how to project that internal mastery outward. How to use your silence as a tool of influence. How to make others want to follow you. How to create the conditions for people to choose your way without you having to ask. That's dominance. Chapter 7. Anchor in the moment. Eliminate distractions for unwavering focus. You've built internal mastery. You've learned to observe without reacting. You've developed the ability to stay calm while others panic. You've created an inner world that's solid and unshakable. But there's a sabotage mechanism that most people never see, and it destroys everything you've built. Your attention is scattered. Right now, as you're reading this, your mind is probably in 3 places at once. You're thinking about this chapter. You're thinking about what you need to do later. You're thinking about a conversation you had yesterday. You're worried about something. You're planning something. Your body is here, but your mind is everywhere except the moment you're actually in. And because your attention is scattered, your power is scattered. Because your focus is fragmented, your presence is fragmented. Because you're not fully where you are, you're not fully present to what's happening right now. This is the hidden killer of power. Not lack of skill, not lack of intelligence, but the inability to anchor yourself completely in the present moment. Think about the entrepreneur in a high-stakes negotiation. He's talented, he's prepared, he knows his numbers, but his attention is divided. Part of him is thinking about a problem back at the office. Part of him is worrying about whether he's negotiating well enough. Part of him is in the future outcome instead of the actual conversation happening right now. And because his attention is fractured, his negotiating power is fractured. He misses signals. He responds too quickly. He doesn't see the real leverage point. He doesn't command the room. Now imagine a different entrepreneur. Same stakes, but this one is completely anchored in the present moment. He's fully present with the other person. He's listening completely. He's noticing everything. His attention is a laser. And because his attention is undivided, his power is undivided. Who wins the negotiation? Always the one who's more present. Always the one who's more anchored in the moment. Anchor now, dominate forever. This isn't poetic. This is operational. When your attention is consolidated in this moment, you have access to all of your power. When your attention is scattered across past and future, you have access to none of it. Most people live their entire lives half present. They're never fully where they are. They're always somewhere else mentally. And because of that, they never fully access their power. You're about to change that. You're about to learn how to anchor yourself so completely in the present moment that distraction becomes impossible. Here's what happens when you truly anchor in the moment. Your nervous system calms. Your mind clears. Your intuition becomes available. You can see what's actually happening instead of what you're afraid is happening. You can respond to reality instead of reacting to your imagination. A negotiation becomes simple. A difficult conversation becomes navigable. A high-pressure situation becomes manageable, not because the external circumstances changed, but because you're fully present to what's actually happening instead of caught in your mental stories about what might happen. Anchor now, dominate forever. That's your operating principle. The practice for anchoring yourself in the present moment is called present moment awareness, and it's simpler than you think. But like all simple practices, it requires repetition to become automatic. Here's how it works. You anchor your attention to something immediate and concrete. Not your thoughts, not your feelings, but something real and present. Sounds, sensations, physical objects. Something that exists right now, right here. The most powerful anchor is environmental sound, because sound is happening now. It's not in your head, it's not in the past, it's not in the future. It's happening in this moment. Let me guide you through a present moment awareness meditation. Find a space where you can be still. Close your eyes if that feels right, or keep them soft and downward. Now bring your awareness to sound. Not thinking about sound, but actually listening. What sounds do you hear right now? Maybe traffic outside, maybe wind, maybe the hum of electronics, maybe people, maybe silence itself. Don't judge the sounds. Don't categorize them as good or bad. Just listen. Let each sound arise and pass. Your job is to be present with whatever sound is happening right now. Listen to the first sound. Really listen to it. Don't think about it. Just listen. Where is it coming from? How does it change? How long does it last? Notice a second sound. Listen to that. Then a third. Then a fourth. Keep listening. Keep anchoring your attention to what's actually happening right now in your environment. Do this for 5 minutes. Just listen. Just be present with sound. Whenever your mind wanders to thought or memory or worry, gently return to listening. After 5 minutes, notice how you feel. You'll feel more present, more grounded, more in your body. That's because your attention has been completely anchored in the moment.
Now take that skill into your daily life. Before any important interaction, anchor yourself. In a negotiation, before it begins, spend 1 minute listening to the room. Listen to the sounds. Listen to the ambient noise. Anchor yourself so completely in the present moment that distraction is impossible. Before a difficult conversation, the same thing. Anchor yourself in sound, in the moment, in what's actually happening right now. Before a presentation or a meeting, anchor yourself, not by overthinking, but by becoming completely present through listening. This single shift from scattered attention to anchored attention changes everything, because when you're fully present, you have access to all of your faculties, your intuition, your intelligence, your presence, your power. Return to the now, your power source. That's the mantra. Every time you notice your attention has drifted, you return, not with frustration, not with judgment, just with the quiet recognition that you were somewhere else, and now you're coming back to where the actual power is, the present moment. There was an athlete training for a major competition, a runner. She was fast, she was strong, but in competitions she would get in her head. She'd be thinking about the finish line, thinking about the other runners, thinking about what it would mean if she won or lost. And because her attention was scattered across past and future, her performance suffered. She didn't run as fast in competitions as she did in training. Her mind was getting in the way. Then she discovered present moment anchoring. She started practicing it daily, listening to sounds, feeling her feet on the ground, anchoring herself in the actual now. On race day, she did the same thing. Before the race began, she anchored herself completely in the present moment. She felt her feet. She heard the crowd. She felt her breath. And then the race began. And something was different. She wasn't thinking about winning or losing. She wasn't comparing herself to other runners. She was completely present with the moment, each stride, each breath, each second unfolding. She ran her personal best, not because she suddenly became stronger or faster, but because her entire attention was focused on the present moment instead of scattered across anxiety and projection. Anchor now, dominate forever. That's what she learned. Every moment you're fully present is a moment you're operating at maximum capacity. Return to the now, your power source. That became her mantra. Every time her mind drifted in training, she would return. Every time she felt scattered in competition, she would anchor. And the results spoke for themselves. You've now mastered 7 practices. You've built a complete system of internal mastery and strategic presence. You can silence the noise within. You can ground yourself. You can armor yourself. You can control your nervous system. You can extend compassion to yourself. You can observe without reacting. And now you can anchor yourself completely in the present moment. You are becoming something rare, someone who is unshakable, someone who is present, someone whose attention is a weapon. But attention without direction is wasted. Power without purpose is meaningless. Now it's time to learn how to direct that presence strategically, how to use your complete focus as a tool of influence, how to make people feel seen and valued by the sheer intensity of your attention, how to use presence itself as the foundation of loyalty and respect. That's where influence becomes inevitable. Chapter 8. Project subtle influence. Lead without commanding vocally. You've reached a threshold. You've built internal mastery. You've become grounded. You've learned to observe. You've anchored yourself in presence. You've become solid and unshakable. Most people stop here. They're comfortable. They're confident internally, but they never learn the next level. They never learn how to take that internal power and translate it into external reality. This is where the difference between someone who is powerful and someone who is dominant becomes clear. Someone who is powerful is solid internally. They've done their work, they've built their foundation, but they don't know how to project that power outward. They don't know how to influence. They don't know how to shape outcomes. Someone who is dominant does all of that and then translates it into external reality. They make things happen. People follow them. The world responds to them. The difference isn't dramatic. It's subtle. It's in how they speak, in when they speak, in the pauses they create, in the breath they take before responding, in the stillness they project while others are scrambling. True leaders don't command. They don't need to. They influence. And their influence is so subtle, so quiet, so effortless that people don't even realize they're being influenced. They think they're choosing. They think it's their idea. That's the pinnacle of power. Think about history. The most powerful people weren't always the loudest. They weren't always the most aggressive. Look at the quiet revolutionaries, the people who changed the world by shifting consciousness, by asking the right questions, by creating space for people to think differently. They influenced, they didn't command. And because they influenced rather than commanded, the change they created was permanent. Influence whispers and worlds shift. This is not gentle. This is not weak. This is the most powerful form of leadership that exists. When you command, you create resistance. People do what you say because they have to, but the moment you're not watching, they go back to their old ways. They resent you. They're waiting for the opportunity to undermine you. But when you influence, you change how people think. You change what they want. You align them with your vision so completely that they choose it. And once they've chosen it, they're committed. That's the difference between force and influence. Force is temporary. Influence is permanent. So how do you develop this? How do you learn to influence without commanding? The foundation is something you already know: pausing. But not random pausing, strategic pausing, pausing with purpose. Here's what happens when most people engage in conversation. Someone asks a question or makes a statement, and they immediately respond. No gap, no space, just immediate reaction. But someone who influences does something different. They pause, they breathe, they let the space exist, and in that space, something happens. That pause is silence, and silence is magnetic. When everyone else is talking and reacting and scrambling, and you pause and create stillness, you stand out. You command attention without saying anything. But it's more than that. That pause is also where your intelligence enters the room. Most people think faster than they speak, so they speak from reactive thinking. But when you pause, you access deeper thinking. You access wisdom instead of reaction.
Pause with purpose. Lead invisibly. Win decisively. That's the practice. Here's how it works.
Someone in a meeting makes a statement. Everyone starts reacting. Ideas are flying. Voices are rising. It's chaos. And then you pause. You breathe. You let 3 seconds of silence exist. 3 seconds doesn't sound like much, but in a room full of talkers, 3 seconds of silence from you is deafening. It's like you've just said the most important thing. Everyone stops. Everyone looks at you. Because your silence stands out. Your pause stands out. And in that moment, when you finally speak, your words have weight. They have impact because they've been preceded by intentional silence, because they've come from the pause, not from reaction. This is mindful pausing. This is using silence as a strategic tool. Let me teach you the technique. It's simple but devastating in its effectiveness. When you're about to respond to something, create a small pause. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 4. That single breath creates a gap. In that gap, your nervous system shifts from reactive to responsive. Your thinking shifts from fast to deep. Your presence shifts from scattered to centered. Then you speak, and because you've paused and breathed before speaking, your words have weight. They have impact because they've been preceded by intentional silence, because they've come from the pause, not from reaction. This is mindful pausing. This is using silence as a strategic tool. Let me teach you the technique. It's simple but devastating in its effectiveness. When you're about to respond to something, create a small pause. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 4. That single breath creates a gap. In that gap, your nervous system shifts from reactive to responsive. Your thinking shifts from fast to deep. Your presence shifts from scattered to centered. Then you speak, and because you've paused and breathed before speaking, your words have weight. They have impact because they've been preceded by intentional silence, because they've come from the pause, not from reaction. This is mindful pausing. This is using silence as a strategic tool. Let me teach you the technique. It's simple but devastating in its effectiveness. When you're about to respond to something, create a small pause. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 4. That single breath creates a gap. In that gap, your nervous system shifts from reactive to responsive. Your thinking shifts from fast to deep. Your presence shifts from scattered to centered. Then you speak, and because you've paused and breathed before speaking, your words have weight. They have impact because they've been preceded by intentional silence, because they've come from the pause, not from reaction. This is mindful pausing. This is using silence as a strategic tool. Let me teach you the technique. It's simple but devastating in its effectiveness. When you're about to respond to something, create a small pause. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 4. That single breath creates a gap. In that gap, your nervous system shifts from reactive to responsive. Your thinking shifts from fast to deep. Your presence shifts from scattered to centered. Then you speak, and because you've paused and breathed before speaking, your words have weight. They have impact because they've been preceded by intentional silence, because they've come from the pause, not from reaction. This is mindful pausing. This is using silence as a strategic tool. Let me teach you the technique. It's simple but devastating in its effectiveness. When you're about to respond to something, create a small pause. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 4. That single breath creates a gap. In that gap, your nervous system shifts from reactive to responsive. Your thinking shifts from fast to deep. Your presence shifts from scattered to centered. Then you speak, and because you've paused and breathed before speaking, your words have weight. They have impact because they've been preceded by intentional silence, because they've come from the pause, not from reaction. This is mindful pausing. This is using silence as a strategic tool. Let me teach you the technique. It's simple but devastating in its effectiveness. When you're about to respond to something, create a small pause. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 4. That single breath creates a gap. In that gap, your nervous system shifts from reactive to responsive. Your thinking shifts from fast to deep. Your presence shifts from scattered to centered. Then you speak, and because you've paused and breathed before speaking, your words have weight. They have impact because they've been preceded by intentional silence, because they've come from the pause, not from reaction. This is mindful pausing. This is using silence as a strategic tool. Let me teach you the technique. It's simple but devastating in its effectiveness. When you're about to respond to something, create a small pause. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 4. That single breath creates a gap. In that gap, your nervous system shifts from reactive to responsive. Your thinking shifts from fast to deep. Your presence shifts from scattered to centered. Then you speak, and because you've paused and breathed before speaking, your words have weight. They have impact because they've been preceded by intentional silence, because they've come from the pause, not from reaction. This is mindful pausing. This is using silence as a strategic tool. Let me teach you the technique. It's simple but devastating in its effectiveness. When you're about to respond to something, create a small pause. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 4. That single breath creates a gap. In that gap, your nervous system shifts from reactive to responsive. Your thinking shifts from fast to deep. Your presence shifts from scattered to centered. Then you speak, and because you've paused and breathed before speaking, your words have weight. They have impact because they've been preceded by intentional silence, because they've come from the pause, not from reaction. This is mindful pausing. This is using silence as a strategic tool. Let me teach you the technique. It's simple but devastating in its effectiveness. When you're about to respond to something, create a small pause. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 4. That single breath creates a gap. In that gap, your nervous system shifts from reactive to responsive. Your thinking shifts from fast to deep. Your presence shifts from scattered to centered. Then you speak, and because you've paused and breathed before speaking, your words have weight. They have impact because they've been preceded by intentional silence, because they've come from the pause, not from reaction. This is mindful pausing. This is using silence as a strategic tool. Let me teach you the technique. It's simple but devastating in its effectiveness. When you're about to respond to something, create a small pause. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 4. That single breath creates a gap. In that gap, your nervous system shifts from reactive to responsive. Your thinking shifts from fast to deep. Your presence shifts from scattered to centered. Then you speak, and because you've paused and breathed before speaking, your words have weight. They have impact because they've been preceded by intentional silence, because they've come from the pause, not from reaction. This is mindful pausing. This is using silence as a strategic tool. Let me teach you the technique. It's simple but devastating in its effectiveness. When you're about to respond to something, create a small pause. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 4. That single breath creates a gap. In that gap, your nervous system shifts from reactive to responsive. Your thinking shifts from fast to deep. Your presence shifts from scattered to centered. Then you speak, and because you've paused and breathed before speaking, your words have weight. They have impact because they've been preceded by intentional silence, because they've come from the pause, not from reaction. This is mindful pausing. This is using silence as a strategic tool. Let me teach you the technique. It's simple but devastating in its effectiveness. When you're about to respond to something, create a small pause. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 4. That single breath creates a gap. In that gap, your nervous system shifts from reactive to responsive. Your thinking shifts from fast to deep. Your presence shifts from scattered to centered. Then you speak, and because you've paused and breathed before speaking, your words have weight. They have impact because they've been preceded by intentional silence, because they've come from the pause, not from reaction. This is mindful pausing. This is using silence as a strategic tool. Let me teach you the technique. It's simple but devastating in its effectiveness. When you're about to respond to something, create a small pause. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 4. That single breath creates a gap. In that gap, your nervous system shifts from reactive to responsive. Your thinking shifts from fast to deep. Your presence shifts from scattered to centered. Then you speak, and because you've paused and breathed before speaking, your words have weight. They have impact because they've been preceded by
Your shadows are not your enemy. They're your material. They're the raw content that, when processed and integrated, becomes your greatest strength. When healed, they become the foundation of unshakable authority. Because when you've healed your past, you have nothing to prove. You have nothing to defend. You move from a place of wholeness instead of fragmentation, and that wholeness is magnetic. That completeness is powerful. Here's what's important to understand. Healing isn't about forgetting. It's not about pretending the pain didn't happen. It's about fully feeling it, understanding it, extracting the learning, and then releasing it. Most people try to move on without actually processing. They suppress the pain, they avoid it, they distract themselves. But suppressed pain doesn't disappear. It leaks out. It undermines their confidence. It limits their reach. Real healing requires going back into the wound, going back into the moment, going back into the feeling, going back into the body where the trauma is stored, and from that place of full presence with the wound, you can actually heal it. This is where a specific meditation comes in. It's called scar healing meditation, and it's designed to help you process unresolved trauma and integrate it into wisdom. Here's how it works. You bring to mind a moment in your past that still carries charge, a failure, a rejection, a moment you were hurt, a moment where you failed, a moment where someone hurt you. You don't try to fix it. You don't try to make it better. You simply bring full awareness to it. You feel the pain. You feel the emotion. You feel the physical sensation in your body. And then you do something crucial. You extend loving kindness to the version of you that went through that moment, the version of you that was wounded, the version of you that didn't know how to handle it, the version of you that was scared. You say to that version of yourself, I see you in that moment. I understand the pain. I understand the fear. I understand you did the best you could with what you knew. And now extend loving kindness to that version of yourself. Say, may you be gentle with yourself. May you know that this moment does not define you. May you understand that you are worthy even in failure. May you heal from this pain. Breathe and imagine that younger version of yourself receiving your compassion. Imagine the wound softening. Imagine the pain beginning to release. Now, bring that wounded version of yourself forward in time. Imagine it merging with who you are now. Imagine the wisdom from that moment integrating into your current self. You are not the same person you were when that wound happened. You have grown. You have learned. You have become stronger. That wound no longer has power over you because you have processed it. You have integrated it. You have transformed it. Feel that integration. Feel the wholeness. Feel the completion. Stay here for 1 minute, just breathing, just feeling the shift. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes. Notice how you feel. Something has shifted. Not completely, necessarily, but shifted. The wound has begun to release its charge. From shadow to strength, meditate and transform. That's what this practice does. It takes the shadows of your past and transforms them into the strength of your present. There was a man whose business failed. He lost everything. He was humiliated. He was convinced he was a failure. For years, he carried that failure like a wound. Every time he tried something new, the wound would activate. Fear would hijack him. He would sabotage himself because part of him believed he deserved to fail. Then he did this work.
He brought that failure into awareness. He felt the pain fully. He extended loving kindness to the version of himself that had failed. He grieved the loss. And then something shifted. He realized that the failure wasn't about him. It was about a business in a market that wasn't ready. It was about timing. It was about learning. It wasn't about his worth. Once he integrated that understanding, the wound lost its power. And from that integrated place, he built something new. Not out of fear, out of wisdom, out of the learning that failure had taught him. The second time, he succeeded. Not because he suddenly became smarter or more talented, but because he was operating from wholeness instead of woundedness, from integration instead of fragmentation. Heal silently, rise mightily. That's what he learned, that the greatest strength comes not from never failing, but from healing the failure so completely that it becomes wisdom. From shadow to strength, meditate and transform. That's what this practice does. It takes the shadows of your past and transforms them into the strength of your present. You've now mastered 9 practices. You've built not just a system, but a complete life philosophy. Internal mastery, strategic presence, subtle influence, and now healing and integration. You are becoming someone who is whole, someone who is not fragmented by their past, someone who has extracted the wisdom from their wounds, someone who moves forward not from fear, but from the complete integration of all they have experienced. But wholeness without direction is aimless. Integration without purpose is wasted. Now it's time to learn the final piece, how to take this wholeness and direct it with absolute clarity, how to move from the internal work to the external action, how to transform everything you've built into tangible results. That's where dominance becomes undeniable.
Chapter 10. Sustain the Whisper. Daily Rituals for Eternal Silent Confidence. You've done the work. You've built the system. You've learned 9 fundamental practices. You've transformed your inner world. You've become grounded. You've become present. You've become magnetic. And now you're facing the hardest part, the part that separates those who actually transform from those who just read about transformation. Maintenance. Here's the brutal truth that nobody wants to hear. Confidence fades. Power erodes. Without consistent practice, you slip backward. Without reinforcement, the old patterns return. Look at the long-term success stories, the people who have maintained power over decades, the leaders who stay sharp, the warriors who never lose their edge. What's their secret? It's not that they're special. It's not that they have some genetic advantage. It's that they ritualize the work. They build the practices into their daily life. They don't do these meditations and techniques once and expect to be transformed forever. They do them every single day, without exception. Most people do the opposite. They get excited, they practice intensely for a few weeks, and then, when the novelty wears off, when life gets busy, when they feel like they've made progress and don't need to practice anymore, they stop. And within months, they're back where they started. The old patterns have crept back in, the self-doubt has returned, the reactivity has returned, the power has evaporated. Ritualize the whisper, eternalize the warrior. This is the difference between temporary transformation and permanent evolution. Rituals are not boring. Rituals are not tedious. Rituals are the container that holds your transformation in place. Rituals are what turn a moment of insight into a lifetime of power. Think about an elite athlete, a professional fighter, a surgeon. They don't just train once, they train every single day, not because they lack skill, but because consistency is what maintains and deepens skill. The same applies to you. Your mind is a muscle. Your presence is a skill. Your authority is something you cultivate, and cultivation requires daily practice. So here's what I'm going to give you, a daily ritual, a structured routine that blends all the practices you've learned: breath control, loving kindness, observation, presence, anchoring. It's all woven into one coherent system that takes 30 minutes a day. 30 minutes, that's it. That's the daily investment required to maintain eternal confidence. Here's the structure.
You're going to break it into segments. Each segment has a specific purpose. Each segment builds on the previous one. Segment 1, Morning Arrival, 3 minutes. You wake up. Before you check your phone, before you engage with the world, you sit. You take 3 minutes to arrive. You breathe. You feel your body. You anchor yourself in the present moment. During these 3 minutes, you do 4-7-8 breathing. Inhale 4, hold 7, exhale 8. 4 cycles. That's it. You're telling your nervous system that today you're in control. Today you're calm. Today you're present. Segment 2, Loving Kindness, 5 minutes. Now you practice metta. You extend kindness to yourself. May I be strong. May I be calm. May I be at ease. You're not trying to feel anything. You're establishing the foundation. You're reminding yourself that you're worthy. You're beginning to charge your internal system with compassion. Segment 3, Body Scan and Observation, 7 minutes. This is where you move into Vipassana-style observation. You scan your body from toes to head, noticing sensations without judgment. Then you expand to observe thoughts and emotions as they arise and pass. You're practicing non-reactivity. You're training your mind to observe without being pulled into identification. Segment 4, Presence Anchoring, 5 minutes. You anchor yourself in the present moment through sound. You listen to your environment. You notice what's actually happening right now. You bring your attention completely into this moment. You're consolidating your power. You're anchoring the scattered attention into present focus. Segment 5, Gratitude and Intention, 5 minutes. This is where you shift into the future. You think about what you're grateful for from yesterday, not as a soft exercise, but as a practice of recognizing the wins. Then you set your intention for today, not as a wish, but as a clear directive to yourself about what you're going to embody today. What presence are you going to bring? What qualities are you going to demonstrate? Segment 6, Completion, 5 minutes. You sit in stillness. You feel everything you've cultivated in the previous 25 minutes. You feel the quiet power. You feel the calm. You feel the presence. You feel the strength. You don't do anything. You just be with what you've created. That's 30 minutes, every single morning. This is your daily ritual. This is what maintains your transformation. Ritualize the whisper, eternalize the warrior. Do this consistently and something remarkable happens. After 30 days, it becomes automatic. After 60 days, it becomes effortless. After 90 days, it becomes your identity. You don't need to remember to do it. You feel incomplete if you don't do it. Your nervous system has integrated the practice. Now, the beautiful part, this isn't just something you do in the morning in isolation. This is something you carry with you all day. In the boardroom, you pause before speaking. You breathe. You anchor in the present moment. You project calm authority. The room responds. In relationships, you listen with complete attention. You don't react emotionally. You observe. You respond from presence. People feel seen. They trust you. They follow you. In moments of stress, you remember your breath. You do 1 cycle of 4-7-8. Your nervous system shifts. You move from panic to power. In moments of self-doubt, you remember metta. You extend kindness to yourself. The doubt softens. You move forward. In moments of chaos, you anchor in sound. You return to the present moment. The chaos doesn't pull you in. You remain centered. Day by day, whisper by whisper, become the dominant force you were born to be. That's not hyperbole. That's literal. When you commit to this daily practice, you become something different. You become someone who cannot be shaken. You become someone who influences without trying. You become someone whose mere presence commands respect. There was a woman in her 30s. She was successful in her career, but perpetually anxious. She felt like a fraud. She felt like she didn't belong. She was capable, but scared. She learned these practices and committed to the daily ritual, 30 minutes every morning, no exceptions. For the first 2 weeks, it felt like a chore. She didn't notice anything. She almost quit.
Then, something shifted. She woke up one morning and realized she wasn't anxious about her presentation that day. She felt calm. She felt ready. She felt powerful, not arrogantly, but genuinely confident. She gave the presentation. It was the best one she'd ever given, not because she suddenly became smarter, but because her nervous system was calm, because her presence was magnetic, because she was operating from confidence instead of fear. She kept going with the ritual every single day, and over months, the shift became permanent. She wasn't the anxious woman pretending to be confident. She became genuinely confident. The ritual had rewired her nervous system. The daily practice had permanently elevated her baseline. Years later, when asked the secret to her success, she pointed to that daily ritual. 30 minutes every single day. That was the investment that yielded everything. Ritualize the whisper, eternalize the warrior. That's what she became, not through one heroic effort, but through daily consistency. You now have everything, 9 practices integrated into your daily life. The tools, the techniques, the understanding, the knowledge of how to build and maintain eternal confidence. But knowledge without application is philosophy. Power requires action. Transformation requires consistency. This is where the final piece comes in. This is where you learn how to recognize the moment when you've truly become the warrior, how to see the evidence of your own dominance, how to understand that the whisper has become your permanent state. That's the culmination. You've journeyed through Whisper of Warriors, mastering the silent confidence that dominates rooms without a word, from silencing your inner critic to anchoring in unshakable presence, from building invisible armor to projecting subtle influence that bends realities. Through breath as your weapon, loving kindness as your fuel, and daily mindfulness rituals like rain, observation, and metta, you've unlocked the unspoken power radiating authority in crowds, boardrooms, relationships, and beyond. This isn't theory, it's your transformation, turning overlooked moments into unstoppable victories, one mindful breath at a time. Remember, silence the noise, own the room, command your life. Now, your challenge, starting today, commit to 10 minutes of focused breath meditation every morning. Observe one interaction without reaction and watch your presence transform. Don't wait. Whisper your way to warrior status right now, or stay in the shadows forever. Own it.